Hello guys, how are you? I hope you're fine wherever you are. I am the Acca tutor, Mr. Gerald. In this particular video, I'm going to take you through 3 worked questions where I'll be taking you step by step in solving these problematic questions related to suspense accounts. Okay, these were questions which were part of our weekly assignment for week 2. All right, so let's go. Excuse me. Now, the question was saying, at the end of the month, there is a difference of 546.27 on the trial balance, which is debited to suspense account. The following discrepancies are discovered. Okay, so you are given the balance of the suspense account. So what you are required to do is just to draw up your suspense account, right? And you slot in the figures as you are given. The balance was on the debit side. Remember, this is a suspense account. Sus. I don't have a pen today. I forgot it. So I'm just trying to draw with my fingers. It's actually drawing, not writing. Okay, so the balance was 546. 546.27. Drawing is not easy. .27. Okay, now let's proceed. The following discrepancies are discovered. A sundry receipt of 229.32 has been posted to the income, okay, but not to the cash account. Okay, so how do you know which side are you going to put a correcting entry on the suspense account? The first thing you need to do is to discover which side of the trial balance was this particular deficit impacting. Okay, so if you draw up your trial balance here, this is our trial balance. A trial balance has got a debit and credit side. So you're told that a sundry receipt has been posted to income, but not to the cash. What was supposed to have taken place was that we debit cash and credit income, isn't it? Debit cash. So the cash is on the debit side of the trial balance. All right, and the income is on the credit side. So credit income. This was the correct double entry that was supposed to have taken place. Okay, so only the credit side, the income was entered. So only the income, the 229.32. But the debit side, the cash was not entered, which means there was a suspense on the debit side because of that deficit. Okay, so the 229 was a suspense on the for this particular transaction. So if the suspense was on the debit side of the trial balance, therefore a correcting suspense account should be on the credit side of the suspense. So a correcting entry should be the cash here. So we should put cash for the equivalent amount of 229.32. Okay. All right. So from the debit side of the trial balance where the suspense account was to the credit side as a cash entry to correct the anomaly. All right. or let me just say to remove the suspense account. Because remember, a suspense account is only put in the trial balance to enable the accountant to make his investigations of what actually transpired or what led to that particular deficit. Okay, what about the second transaction here? A sales invoice for $91 has been posted to the receivables control account as a credit note. Here, we just have to do what we did. Okay, what was supposed to be the correct journal entry or double entry? Okay, when we make a sales transaction, when we raise an invoice, it means that it is a credit transaction, a credit sales transaction. So in a credit sales transaction, we debit receivables, and credit. This time we don't. There was no cash. All right, don't think of cash. All right, but we credit sales. All right. So sorry, I don't mind my handwriting. This is sales. We credit sales. So we are told that a sales invoice for this much has been posted to the receivables control account. So the assumption is that you know already that the sales side was fine. Okay? Are we together? So the sales was entered correctly. All right? Okay, let's see. All right, so the sales was entered. No. Okay, I'm trying to figure out. Anyway, all right. So the sales side was entered correctly as 91. Okay, but the receivable side now, the receivable side was entered as a credit note. So what it simply means is that the receivables were reduced. All right, the receivables were reduced. So instead of having a receivable of 91 here, we were having a receivable of negative 91. Okay, just reflecting, it was reflecting a sales return. Okay, the receivables, instead of appreciating by 91, they were reduced by 91. Okay, good. So what do you think will happen to the suspense account in this case, mathematically? Okay, so what it means is that, remember, I said the suspense account, for example, in our first entry here on the trial balance, there was an entry of 229.32, okay, for the sales, and it's a corresponding suspense account of the same amount. All right, but now this actually gives a zero difference when we put balancing figures both sides. But now in this particular case, the receivables are negative 91 versus sales of 91. So for this particular entry to balance, it means the suspense account should be of how much value? The suspense account, the trial balance should continue. The suspense account obviously should be of 182. That is a positive 182. This will give us an ultimate suspense account for this transaction of 91. So we come here and say we need an entry here. We need an entry of receivables. Okay, receivables. Receivable of how much? 182.00. Okay, remember this. This was from a suspense account, the first suspense account. I'm sure you guys have seen where these things are coming from. So, to answer our question, we then have to say we need to total up. Remember, in double entry, the side with the bigger amount has got, we have its amount brought down to the totals, to these grand totals. Remember that rule. Okay, the side with a bigger amount will have its amount taken to the grand totals. Okay, so that both sides balance. But you can see that they are not balancing. So the outstanding balance here we need to squeeze is going to be the remaining suspense account balance. Okay, balance CD of the suspense account after we correct these errors. So you need to add 229.32 and 182. Okay, you get the total and you deduct that total from 546.27. So 546.27 minus 182 minus 229.32. So we can see that we are going to have 134.95. So 0.95. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not using a pen, so the handwriting, I've already told you, the handwriting is not going to be good. So the balance CD is 134.95. However, a balance CD is not the ultimate balance. The ultimate balance is going to be the balance BD, which is going to be the balance brought down. And remember, this was a grand total. So the balance brought down is on the debt side, as you can see, which is 134.95. And this means that our answer should be this one. So our answer is B. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Good. So let's go to the next question. Please just take the time to see how I was molding the answer. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I guess and I hope that you guys are following. Okay, now this particular question is going to test us our understanding of suspense account theory. Okay, remember the reason why a suspense account is going to exist or is going to be created is because the trial balance has failed to balance. So you need to know there are errors which affect the trial balance and errors which are going to affect the trial balance. When we say that an error is affecting a trial balance, we are simply saying that the error is causing the trial balance not to balance. Remember, the trial balance should balance. That I mean, by definition, the trial balance should balance. However, there are situations when the trial balance is not going to balance. There are errors. There are such errors which will cause it not to balance. So you need to read and understand based on the theory of errors affecting the trial balance to see if the error is going to give rise to a suspense account or a situation where the trial balance is not going to balance. So let us read the question. A bookkeeper has made the following errors. A cash transaction of $100 not entered in the books at all. So this is an error of complete omission, right? This one, is it going to cause the trial balance not to balance? Obviously not. So this one is not going to affect the trial balance. Then a discount received of $30 was entered in the debit side of discounts allowed and correctly posted to the trade payables account. This one is a bit challenging. Okay, this one is a bit challenging. Let us skip it for now. $300 cash drawings were entered into the repairs account and correctly posted in the cash book. Now, I can see in the exam that the third error is a bit easier. I mean, is a bit soft, so I can try to work around it to see if it is an error that is going to affect the trial balance or not. So, if you make cash drawings, what happens is that you are going to debit drawings. Okay, the drawings account is going to be debited. Debit drawings, and because money is left the company, we are going to credit cash. So cash is the cash book. They are saying that the credit side was done properly. Okay, the aspect of crediting cash was done properly. All right, but the aspect of debiting was, the credit side was fine, but the debit was not done properly. Which means the drawings account was not debited, but a certain account was debited, which was the repairs account. Now, the repairs account is an expense account, and we know that expenses are also debit uh, entries. Okay, they are debit by default. So a debit was, this was just a misposting. So or let me just say an error of is it principal or commission? Okay, but okay, they are not. This is an error, maybe. Yeah, it's of principal. Yes. So it is not going to affect the trial balance. All right. Instead of debiting the drawings account, which is also a debit account, the accountant debited an expense account, which is also a debit account. So in terms of the trial balance is going to balance. So this error is not going to give rise to a suspense account. So you cross again this one. Okay, now let us look at the error relating to discount received. Okay, a clever student should have seen that this particular error is similar to the error which we have just encountered in our first question. Okay, now let us understand what is happening. A discounts received are income. Okay, so these ones are increased by crediting. Okay, discount received. This is not debit, but I'm saying income. All right, so whenever you receive a discount received, you then have to debit something and credit income. Okay, it's income. Discount received are income. So discount received of $30 was entered in the debit side of discounts allowed and correctly posted to the trade payables account. All right, so what happens is when the correct entry, let's start with the correct entry. All right, the correct entry is that you debit trade payables. Debit trade payables. Why? Trade payables are suppliers. Suppliers are the ones who are going to give us some discount if we go to purchase things from N. Richards or from OK, those wholesalers, we get some discounts. So that type of discount is what is called discount received. Right? So the examiner is saying that the debit side was entered correctly as 30. Okay, but the discount received, the income side itself, was entered in the debit side of the discount allowed. So in other words, you can take it either way. Either you can actually say, instead of recording the corresponding 30 here as a positive, it was recorded as a negative. That's the impact. Okay, that's the impact. All right, which will also lead us to the same conclusion. All right, let's say, let me just cross it. Let's say we don't want to say this. Let us just follow the actual wording the examiner used. All right, so the examiner is actually saying that instead of doing that, they posted the $30 to the debit side of the discounts allowed. Now, discounts allowed are, all right, are like an expense. Discounts allowed are given by us to our customers. If our customers buy in bulk or buy certain quantities, we give them some discount. We allow them to pay a reduced amount of money. We allow them to pay a reduced amount. So that's where the term discount allowed came from. Okay. So if they do that, we debit the discount allowed, debit DA. So it was a debit entry, okay, on top of another debit entry. So on top of the debit entry, there was this. So which means the credit side is now going to have a suspense account. A suspense account of how much? There's going to be a suspense account on the credit side of 60. Okay, the suspense account, what would be the balance on the suspense account before the errors were corrected? So before we correct anything, we are going to have a suspense account on the credit side. So there's going to be a suspense credit. So that's our answer, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Okay, somebody might be asking, say, what if we had used the other method? All right. Okay. The other wording I was talking about. Okay. The other wording, suppose we had continued with that, where I said that this guy entered, instead of entering a positive 30, they entered a negative 30. So the impact is that we need a suspense account that will ensure that both sides will balance. Okay, we say that this one was a correct entry. So obviously we need a credit suspense account here. Credit suspense account of how much? Of 60. Why? Because by the end of the day, the debit and credit should balance. This will enable that the debit, the credit side will become minus 30 plus 60 comes to 30. And on this side again, we are having our 30. So it means the answer was still going to be suspense account credit, which is this one, before the error was corrected. Okay, good. Let's move on to the last question. Okay, I think we have covered enough ground, and this is our last question, ladies and gentlemen. And this question, I hope it is going to conclude everything and consolidate all the nitty-gritties, all the gray areas that are still outstanding. Okay, now the question is saying, Benson opened a suspense account because the totals of the debit and credit columns of his trial balance did not agree. And by now, we now know that a trial balance has got two sides, or has got two columns, the debit column and the credit column. These columns should agree. Their totals should agree. However, it happens that sometimes they don't agree. And when they do not agree, you put a suspense account to that column that has got a shortfall. Okay, this will enable you to reduce your area of investigation, because you now know the amount that is in deficit. So you just have to direct your investigations accordingly. After investigation, he discovered that sales of $200 had been debited to the sales account. Okay, so for you to answer, as I've already indicated, you first have to determine what actually transpired, what was the ideal position, what was the ideal or expected double entry, which was going to enable a balancing trial balance. So the ideal position is that double entry which we were expecting to have taken place. But what actually took place? So those are the questions you need to answer for you to arrive at a particular or at a perfect answer. So let's go bit by bit. Okay, so the first thing, he discovered that the sales of $200 had been debited to the sales account. So the correct entry, let's start with the correct entry, or the I do entry. The I do entry, whenever we make a sale, okay, we debit cash, okay, we debit cash and credit sales. That is, if it was a sales transaction, I mean, if it was a cash transaction, a cash sale transaction, we debit cash and credit sales. If it was a credit transaction, we debit receivables and credit sales. Okay, so this was the ideal position, which means we're supposed to say debit cash 200 and credit sales 200. However, we are told that instead of crediting the sales account, what they did is instead of doing this, they didn't credit sales. What they did was they debit the sales account. They debited the sales account by how much? By $200. So what is the impact on the suspense account? Obviously, the suspense account is going to, we're going to have a credit suspense account of how much? By now, you are now a rock star. You now know that the amount now of the suspense account is now $400. Why? Because we had done a correct debit entry of $200 for cash, but we then repeated another debit of 200. So therefore, the total suspense account now is $400 to enable the debits and the credits to balance. Are we together? So the first part we have done. We are done with it. It's now time to attempt or to attend to the second transaction. And purchases of 10,400 had been posted to the purchases account as 10,840. Okay, so the ideal position was supposed to be debit purchases, how much? 10,480. And credit cash 10,480. However, what they did, they debited purchases $10,840. This was a transposition error. Okay, they did not do what? They didn't do this. You see what they did? They debited purchases 10,840 and credited cash 10,408. So where is the suspense account? The suspense account is the difference. We credit suspense account. You are now rock stars, isn't it? Perfect. So what is the difference there? Let me use my calculator. 10. The difference, or somebody, okay, we are saying, if we are saying the difference we are saying we need to total both sides. Okay, if you total both sides, you can see that the debit side is the one that has got a higher amount, a larger amount. So we take that amount, we put it in these grand totals. So we put again here 10,840. Then we subtract 10,840 minus 10,840 minus 10,480. There is 360 difference. 360. So you can see that the suspense account for the second transaction is 360. Now, you then have to add the totals of this suspense account. The totals of the suspense accounts. Okay, the two suspense accounts. The first one was a credit of 400 and another credit of 360. So you can see that the suspense account credits are 760. So our answer is number one. Number one there. That is before end adjustments. Okay. I'm sure I have covered everything, and this is how you guys should have done these questions. Okay. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in need of a tutor, I am available. Those are my numbers. You can contact me through WhatsApp or direct call anytime, any day. All right, it's tea time. Until next time, I am signing out. Bye.